Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So what is ihsan? So he asks the Prophet ﷺ to tell me about ihsan. And listen to the answer there, or take a look at the answer. The Prophet ﷺ tells us, أَن تَعْبُدُ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ فَإِن لَمْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. That you worship, that the Prophet ﷺ explains that ihsan as worshipping Allah as though you see Him, knowing that if you do not see Him, He surely sees you. This is the interpretation or the explanation of that statement. This signifies the highest level of devotion, encompassing both external actions, internal faith, and emphasizing awareness of Allah's presence. So in a nutshell, if you want to put that all in one word, this statement about ihsan means that you are conscious of Allah every moment of every day of your life. That's ihsan. As though Allah is watching you and you're watching Him. Meaning as though you are aware, you are awake, that you know someone is watching you, and for you to be able to watch someone else, what must you do? You have to pretty much push aside, ignore and exclude everything around you to focus on this one thing. So that's what the statement means, is that you're literally conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is always present. So one example of this is something very simple like, oh my God, Allah is watching, Allah, I can't say that, I can't act like that. To be able to like have to remind yourself is one thing, that's fine, that's great. But ihsan, it's automatic. You don't have to even verbalize it to yourself. No one has to remind you. It's automatic that you live your entire life always in the presence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you. You're conscious of that. That's what that statement is talking about. What is ihsan then, linguistically? Ihsan is, as we mentioned, I think someone had asked this question a while ago, but just to sort of keep things organized with this hadith, ihsan is in that you do more than that which is expected of you. So you do more than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects from you. So if Allah tells you that you give, I don't know, 2.5%. 2.5% of your zakat, you do this once a year. But when that time of the year comes, you do your 2.5 and you're done with that, but you want to give some more at that particular moment. So you decide that with the intention of sadaqah, that, okay, you know what, I'm just going to give some extra. I'm going to do this and I'm going to make that my routine. Doing more for others. Somebody asks you for one thing, you strive to do that one thing, but you go above and beyond and make it as perfect and as special and as meaningful to that individual as possible. So they ask you, hey, listen, can you just come over and help me clean my house? Not only do you go and you help clean the house, you rent the equipment to clean, you buy all the cleaning products, and you do everything, and you spend the night there. You don't just come for that, you stay there until it's all done. That's you going above and beyond. The person doesn't ask you for that. But you, your own nafs, tells you and wants to do more and push yourself more. Now apply that same principle with ibadat and everything that we say and do for the sake of Allah. You don't just settle for the bare minimum, you always strive to do more, and that's a principle you live by in life. So this is the first part of the definition, is that you do more or extra for the sake of Allah, and continuing the same linguistic definition, and you are grateful in receiving what is equal or less. You are grateful to receive in return what is equal or less. You still say alhamdulillah. Less meaning that the person then, so let's say later on, you need some help to clean your house. And you ask the same person. The person remembers you went above and beyond when you came over. So you know what, I'll be there. Only problem is, he came empty-handed. He's like, do you have any water? Do you have any mops or any towels? Yeah. And then once everything gets organized, you know, he only stays there for like an hour. And he's like, yeah, man, I got to get going. My wife's calling me. My kids need me. I got to go do groceries, blah, blah, blah. And he goes. That's not for you to say, man, this guy, you know, totally took advantage of me. The muhsin, i.e. the person who has the quality of ihsan, is called a muhsin. the muhsin in this case still says, Alhamdulillah. You know, my ajr and my reward is with Allah, is not with this person. So it's also in reference to an ayah in Surah Al-Insan, لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا, that we don't want any reward or gratitude from anyone else. It's the same ayah, إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله, that we only feed for the sake or for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا. We don't want any sort of reward or thank you or gratitude from anyone. If you give it to me, no problem, I appreciate it. But don't think I'm doing this because that's what I want from you. إِنَّا نَخَافُ مِنْ رَبِّنَا يَوْمًا عَبُوسًا قَمْطَرِيرًا. That the only thing that drives that believer is their fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So this is in a nutshell what ihsan is. Last question and we move on to the next point. Okay? How do you develop ihsan? As a matter, okay, let's just talk about how you develop it. And the last thing is, how do you know if you have it or not? Okay? How do you develop ihsan? By the way, you all have answers to this question. All of you. Okay, salatu ala nabi, okay.
Do you work on your Islam and Iman first before trying to achieve ihsan?
Tell me more where you get that from. Are you getting it from the same hadith?
Yes, that's how.
The pattern of the hadith?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So when you say you get it from your Islam and Iman, like you perfect your Islam and you strive to perfect your Iman and hopefully it'll lead you to ihsan, something like that?
That's the way that I think.
Sure, that's good. Okay. So we have specifically as-salatu was-salam ala nabi. This is actually based on an authentic narration of our Prophet ﷺ, that one of the rewards of saying Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallayta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka hamidun majid. One of the many blessings of doing that consistently, no, not just on Jum'ah, all the time. It's a constant dhikr that you are involved with as much as possible, is that it certainly raises your status in the sight of Allah to the status of the people of ihsan. Tell me something else. Yeah? Doing more nawafil, good. More of your sunan as well, mastering, protecting the sunan. There's a principle in the Sharia, when you protect the voluntary acts of worship, when you strive to do those, by default, you will always and forever protect the fard acts of worship. So when you strive to perform the voluntary acts of worship, by default, you will always and forever protect the fard acts of worship. If that doesn't happen, that is not a problem with the sunan acts or the voluntary acts of worship. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with that. That's why you're still lazy with the fard. What's the problem? Why could that still potentially happen to a believer? Praying tahajjud, praying all their sunan salawat, they're doing all of this and still praying dhuhr late, fajr late, rushing through it, lazy, still the bad habits are there. Why is this happening? There could be a lot of reasons, right? There could be a lot of reasons. Why do you think this could still happen to someone working so hard? And yet the fard prayers are still heavy. They're still like, oh, Qul Allahu Ahad, Allahu Akbar. Second, Allahu Samad. Yeah, there's people who do that. Okay, khushur. So they're focused on their concentration, sure. Remember what I told you, the number one most effective way to master your salawat. What must you start with? If you want to focus on your prayer more, perfect your salawat more, meaning pray it on time, and when you do pray it, you're doing it also properly and you're perfecting all of the movements, you're doing it with khushur. So literally, if you're going to take 10 minutes to pray dhuhr, you finish dhuhr in like 9 minutes or 8 minutes. Like you really take your time and recite and focus. How do you arrive there if you're struggling to do so? It goes back, number one place that you always want to start with is what your life is when you're not praying. What does that look like? What are you doing with your time? What are you talking about? What are you spending your day and your time outside of prayer? And I guarantee you, inshallah, 99% of the time you will know exactly why you cannot master your fard prayers. You'll figure it out. Most Muslims that have this problem is usually linked because of something in their life, a lifestyle habit that they have. They could be the masters. They could give you a PhD in backbiting. Salah doesn't move nothing. As soon as before, after Salah, yeah, this person, that person, this person, oh my God, it's Maghrib time. Let's go pray. It doesn't do it. Like Salah doesn't work like that. I always tell students, don't think that acts of worship transform you. They don't change you. That's not how worship. Salah doesn't change the individual. That's why you have somebody who is praying right beside you, who is crying behind the imam because he's so moved, he or she is so moved. But the person beside them, oh my God, when is this imam going to finish? They're both doing the exact same worship, but you see both of them are experiencing in a complete opposite manner. Why does that happen? Because it goes back to the life of this individual outside of prayer. You cannot have one and not the other. You have to have both. There has to be some consistency. Okay, so if you pray because you want Allah to forgive you, you also have to live as though you want Allah to forgive you as well. If you pray for Allah to purify your heart and your tongue, then you also have to live and make decisions in your life that accommodate that, that facilitate that you're purifying your heart, your tongue, your life, and so on. Everybody understand? So going back now to ihsan, one of the most effective ways of achieving ihsan always starts with sincerity. Okay? And sincerity, don't take this term lightly. Imam al-Zuhri, rahimahullah, who was one of the great scholars of the Tabi'un time, who said that I struggled with sincerity for 25 years and I still can't figure it out. This is a scholar that has written books that could literally fill this entire room. And he would make a statement like this, just to give us all a perspective of how you have to struggle constantly to maintain sincerity. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself. Sometimes you have to just like, oh, I just got to put away this, I don't even want to see it. Sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to find a room or a spot where it's just blank. You know, like it doesn't have like a nice frame somewhere or a nice design. Like you just need a blank spot to focus on. Sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes you really have to train the nafs, and that could take a long time. And as you heard, some of our ulama, they struggle with it for years, just to keep themselves focused. I don't think anybody here can guarantee themselves that every time you've prayed a salah, including me by the way, that it was always 100% focused in the salah. Okay? And that's okay, that's normal. That's normal, but you still have to strive, right? You strive to make it as perfect and as best as possible. So all that boils down to the sincerity element. And once you master the sincerity part of that, the second thing is, of course, mastering all the compulsory acts of worship is also one of the most important and effective ways to achieve the level of ihsan. Okay, so must every Muslim who is able to learn how to recite the Quran properly? Do you agree? Does every Muslim who is able to? Okay, there's no age barrier for this, by the way. If you think this age is like, oh, you know, I'm just too old, I can't really do that. Yeah, that is from shaitan. Ask Allah to protect you from that. Because age has never been a barrier between the believer and ilm and knowledge. Okay? It's never been. We put that barrier there. We developed a lifestyle and a culture for ages before you and I were born. It's always been there that when you reach a certain time of your life, sure, it might be a little harder. It's not impossible. Allah's not asking you to be the imam of the haram at 95 years old. Allah is not asking you to be the next Mashari Rashid. Allah is just simply asking you to just make a commitment and try. And don't be surprised that whatever age you're at, You'll figure it out very quickly, inshallah. Yeah.
What's the connection between achieving ihsan by doing salawat or like istighfar by achieving sincerity? Like, what is the connection?
The by doing istighfar, that will eventually. Yeah.
Or by doing salawat, like you'll be able to achieve ihsan.
So this is great. This is a great question. Like, what's the connection by constantly astaghfirullah, Allahumma ghfirli, doing adhkar in general, including Allahumma salli ala Muhammad? Like, what is the connection between that and your status of iman continuing to climb and rise until you reach the highest level, i.e. ihsan? Do you agree with this statement? The more you strive to live a life pleasing to Allah, okay, the higher and stronger your iman will become. Do you agree with this statement? So the more you strive to abstain from sin, do you get closer to Allah? Do you get closer to Allah? The less you sin, even the sin is right in front of you. I have an opportunity to do it, but I don't. Are you rewarded for that? When you are rewarded from Allah, does your status now get closer? Does it go up a notch? Does it go up a layer? Yes or no? Do you agree with the statement? Yeah. Now imagine astaghfirullah, and you're doing this more and more. What's happening to all of your mistakes and sins now? Just like the Prophet ﷺ said, when you pray 5 times a day, what's the reward? As if, remember the hadith about the water? Somebody tell it to me. As if what's happening? Imagine if somebody was dirty, okay, impure, and they took a shower and they jumped into the water 5 times a day. Would you see any dirt on them? That's an imagery that if you're constantly making these istighfar and you're constantly striving to do adhkar, don't take it lightly, because you're constantly purifying your heart, your nafs, your soul, your lifestyle, and all of these things will begin to change. You know what's remarkable about moving the tongue for the sake of Allah? By default, your heart starts to develop this remorse and this guilt. You don't have to sit there and confess to anyone. Like, you'll just feel it. You'll remember something like 40 years ago I did a transaction and it was dishonest. And it'll bite you 40 years later. Why? Because you're starting to purify your nafs. So by default, you start thinking back and like, oh God. And all you can do at that moment now is just ask Allah to forgive you. And don't think that that's like good. Like, that is exactly what Allah wants from you. Ask Him to forgive and just leave it at that. And be confident in Allah's response. Allah does not get anything out of punishing anyone. And that is why the ulama have a principle that the one who is destined for the fire, it is their own fault. Because as long as you are alive and you wake up every day, the doors of forgiveness and tawbah are always open to you. So if you've been awake for 25 years, for 40 years, for 60 years, mashallah, alhamdulillah, you have had the doors of tawbah opened for a long time. And so that is a sign of khair. That's a sign of goodness that Allah is still giving you a chance. He woke you up again. He woke you up again. You prayed again. Some people wake up, but they don't, a lot of them just stop. They're like, whatever, what's the point? I don't see the fruits of what I'm doing, so I'm done with it. You haven't done that. So when you live this kind of regimen, this type of lifestyle where you're constantly thinking, reflecting, and moving the tongue, and you're all striving for one thing, then it's only by default. You continue to rise and rise and rise. So this leads me to my last question. How do you know you are at the level of ihsan? How do you know that? The answer is nobody does. Allah knows. Allah knows best. I've never found a solid answer for this. Allah knows best. Some of our scholars, like Ibn al-Qayyim, even Imam al-Nawawi actually, rahimahullah, had also said that there is something that Allah puts in the heart that the believer knows that they are in a special place. They have a connection with Allah and they just know it. You know how sometimes, like when you pray salah in the masjid, And you tell somebody who doesn't do that, you try to explain to them what it feels like to pray in the masjid. You know, sometimes you just don't know what to say. You're like, listen, man, you just got to try it. Like, oh, they're like, listen, I pray Maghrib on time at home. I even have a prayer room. Got my whole little sajjada spread on the floor. I even got a picture of the Kaaba on the wall. I visited, some homes where there was a nice little personalized wudu area in the room. So they went all out to make it just as masjidi as possible, if that makes sense, right? Just to get that whole vibe. Do you think that the person who prays in there will get the same feeling as if they come and pray here? No, never. Not even close. Try explaining it. And don't even get me started about Fajr in the masjid. Like, that's just a whole nother thing. You pray Fajr in the masjid, my goodness, you will taste a part of Iman you have never experienced your entire life. Like, there's just nothing to describe what that is. So ihsan, somehow it may be connected to that same feeling where you just know. And the people of ihsan, obviously one of the first qualities that they develop is khushu' and sincerity only for Allah. So they're not going to wear a t-shirt saying I'm a muhsin. They're not going to be telling you, yeah, listen, I can't have this conversation. I'm like, here. I'm at the mashallah, you're still at the astaghfirullah. So when you get here, we can talk. No, they don't do that. Unfortunately, as silly as that may sound, students, like I don't know, man, I've met and had conversations with Muslims who talk like that. I've reached the level of ihsan, so, stuff is really basic to me. So, subhanAllah. Yeah, no. Let's continue. Fourth question. Jibreel alayhi salam asks, so just so that we can, well, you all have it in front of you there. But, okay. This is the part of the hadith that we are at. So inform me about the hour, okay? And let me just go back to the Arabic. فأخبرني عن الساعة قال ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل, which is a really, if you can memorize that one statement here, students. So if you want to find it in your book, the Arabic part of that, ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل. If you want to underline that, really remarkable statement from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. What does he say? Its translation is, tell me about, okay, you have spoken, you believe, here we go. He replied, this is the translation. He alayhi salatu wasalam replied, I have no more knowledge thereof than you. Some translations will be like, I have no more knowledge than the one who is asking. Then it'll say, so what do you guys have in your booklet there? Can one of you just read that to me? Than the questioner. See, just beautifully phrased, right? Very beautiful way. Basically, I don't know any more than you, the one asking me. Okay, so we both, in other words, it's such a polite but a sophisticated way of saying we both don't know, right? So when he does this, alayhi salatu wasalam, then Jibreel alayhi salam doesn't stop there. He then asks him that, okay, well, give me at least or inform me of some of its signs. Scholars say that is the number one most important purpose for studying the Day of Judgment, the whole subject of the Day of Judgment. Is that the first and number one most important, if you want to call it science or branch of knowledge that's connected to the Day of Judgment. Sometimes we would talk about how to prepare for it. We would talk about when is it going to come and all of the things that all of the different alamat, the major signs, minor signs. So if that is when you hear the word the Day of Judgment and your mind by default goes into, man, this is happening, or this already happened, subhanAllah, we are close. If you start thinking about it this way, that's the right track. And that should lead you to, what have I done? How am I preparing? So you connect, once you can connect to some of the signs, and we can all connect to signs of the Day of Judgment, all of us, because most of them are done. Okay, some scholars believe that even all the minor signs are done. Right, we just have a few major signs that are left. Okay, and of them, one of the last major signs that has happened is, does anybody know? The most recent major sign? Does anybody know? The death of the Prophet ﷺ. That was one of the major signs, or the most recent of the major. Okay, there's a few more to come. You know, obviously the Dajjal. You know, the smoke or the dukhan, the great fire that will happen. All of these things, the sun rising from the west, etc. Right, and Ya'juj and Ma'juj, all of these different things. Right, so they are still to come. But the point here is that in terms of the minor signs, because does anybody here can give me an example of a minor sign? What's a minor sign? We're living it and we're seeing it every single day. What's a minor sign?
Unjust killing. Unjust killing.
Okay, unjust killing, sure. And you said? Sure, okay, so there will be competition of wealth in general. This hadith will highlight one example of that. How about zina, fawahish, shame? It would be so widespread that people will just get used to it. As a matter of fact, our Prophet ﷺ told us there eventually will come a time when the people of modesty, they would be pointed at and looked at as the foreign and strange one. You're so covered, why are you covered up like that? They will be the one that would stand up. When you think it would be the opposite. That's how mankind began. We began without anything on. And as the generations passed, we learned how to cover ourselves, etc., right? Going back all the way to the story of Adam alayhi salam, right? What was the reason why Adam alayhi salam was expelled from Jannah? Surah Al-A'raf tells us that the first reason was what? They were both exposed to one another. That was the first problem and led to the downfall where he was eventually expelled. So my point here is that we are living and seeing a lot of these minor signs. This hadith now focuses on one very specific one, and here it is. Or a couple of them, I should say. It starts off with that, and تَلِدَ الْأَمَةَ رَبَّتَهَا, so that he, alayhi salatu wasalam, said that a bondswoman, a slave woman, al-amata, a slave woman, gives birth to her own master. Now you have to understand what this means, so write this down, okay? Scholars have differed on this. So you know what I will do, Hamza, I'm going to go to the board real quick here. Okay. So number one, when we talk about this, okay, students, when we talk about this statement here, that she gives birth to her own master. So this part here, so we'll say gives birth to her own master. Scholars have a number of opinions on this, okay? What is the first one is, and I've wrote in here, it will be a shift in the social hierarchy, okay? Yeah. What do I mean by this? So a slave woman, okay, will have a child with her master. That child in Islam by default is a free child, i.e., the child now is going to be raised by who? The mother, who is a what? A slave. So she eventually, that child now, as they continue to grow and even whatever, becomes a teenager, that child has never been a slave. By default, it is born as a free child. So by default, it already has the status of whom? The mother or the father? The father, the master. So you understand? So that will be that shift where she will give birth now to the son, and the son by default, you would think it would be the other way around. Just because it's the son or a child, the mother should always be in control. But no, society, at least then, and I certainly without a doubt believe that some of this is practiced till this day, So the social hierarchy, meaning that a slave woman would bear a child, will bear a child that is fathered by her master. Okay, so this is what I mean when I say a shift in the social hierarchy. It should be, originally it should be, the parents, then the children, correct? But this one child, because of their status, now takes the same position as the parent. So now you understand. She gives birth to her master. Number two, another opinion that scholars have is, this is probably one that you see or you hear about, right? Is the widespread disobedience to parents. This one you probably hear about a lot, right? So this is also an interpretation that is very much scholars talk about and is a strong opinion, right? That children will become so disobedient and arrogant, they will treat their parents in the same way or even worse, even lower. So they themselves are arrogant, but they will treat their own parents even worse and become more arrogant, more defiant to their parents. So in essence, she is giving birth to someone that will eventually be in charge and control her and control the parents, right? So it looks at it from that angle as well. So what this would do, number two, is that it symbolizes a major shift in the social order, where respect for elders is gone. Do you think we're there? Respect for elders, especially parents. Do you think we're there?
For parents, yeah.
For parents? Is it harder to find children and to raise children that are respectful to their parents in this day and age? Would you agree?
In the West, for sure.
In the West here, okay. So culture and society definitely plays a major, major role in how that child views their parents and the relationship they develop. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think it's impossible? Is it still possible at the end of the day for you and I to raise children in this society, this part of the world, with the morals and values that reflect respect for elders, especially their parents? Do you think this is still possible?
Yes, it is.
100%. 100%. Right? So, yeah, it might be tricky, it might be hard, but it is certainly, without a doubt, not impossible. However, you all agree that the culture of teaching children these values has become next to impossible. I, as a lecturer, can no longer stand on a microphone or in front of a community and say that we, as children, must show love and respect to our parents and leave it there and say, okay, let's pray. I can't do that no more. Now you have to explain why. You have to try to find logical ways and avenues to justify why the two persons that you find are so annoying, that have so many rules for you, you still have to love and respect and listen to everything they say. And sometimes I get, not sometimes, more often than I wish to admit, is that sometimes some of the kids will come up to me after and be like, you need to come and stay in my house for a night and see how my parents are. You should see how they talk to me. See when my dad gets angry, how he acts. If he doesn't eat, how his mood changes. You should see what my mom says on the phone when she's talking to your other children, or her siblings, telling me what a bad kid I am. Yeah. Why should I still respect them? Very quick point before we go on to the third one. I'll just give you a third one. What's your answer to that?
That's fair. I mean, it happens.
I mean, you have parents out there that are just like, they're not very good at what they do. They're parents, but just by name. What do you tell the student? What do you tell this child?
I feel like something like that is very difficult for a child, because if the child wasn't raised with respect, right? And I don't know if how an outsider will be able to teach that child if this wasn't done in their home. It's a two-way thing. Right?
So if the child says to you, my parents were never good parents to me. They put me down, they called me names, they made fun of me. Why should I respect them? What do you say to this kid?
You
remind them that, for example, they cared for you, they fed you, they kept you clean, they gave you a home, they gave you a roof over your head, they gave you clothing, they allowed you to pursue education.
So this is one very important way, is you focus on the things you couldn't have done for yourself. You couldn't feed yourself. Who changed your diaper? You did? Oh, mashallah, you know? Like, there are certain things, no matter how whatever you say, the pain you experience now, prior to all of that, you had to get to the stage. And who nurtured all of that, that still counts for something. So that's one way of starting. I'm not saying that's the way and that's it, it'll solve this is one way you can approach it, yeah?
I feel like you just remind them that you're doing it for yourself, not necessarily
Good.
for them, to kind of shift your own perspective and mindset. So if you feel stuck in that situation, how much power do you really have to change other people, whereas you can just change yourself to make it easier?
Okay, so then I'm going to play devil's advocate with you for a second, right? I'm that child. And my parents, just looking at them makes you upset. So I should still be grateful at the end of the day. For what?
Just so you're not in this state of like misery and you feel like there's no way out, because if you're in this cycle and this mindset, right, like it's not really helping you in the long term. I understand that your parents are the way that they are, and it must be tough that you're experiencing that, especially when you feel like there's no way out.
Okay.
But if you want to be solution oriented, what are some things that you can do that are within your power to kind of shift your perspective and be in a better mental state?
Okay, I got an answer here. Remember, I'm devil's advocate here. I'm just going to cut them off.
Yeah.
I'm never going to talk to them. I'm going to move out. You see, what I'm trying to get at, you all have the exact thing. You're exactly where your mind should be. There's only so far you can go. And that's why Allah leaves us with one principle. Okay, I'll come to you in a second. One principle, right? وَصَاحِبُهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. At the end, the default is to just be good to them in a way that is acceptable, a way that is known and understood and acceptable. This is an appropriate way that, despite your parents were or have or they are what they are, this, how you respond and how you deal with that, is the bare minimum, and leave it at that. So sometimes, yeah, my parents, yeah, they're really abusive. But, you know, I just kind of like stay quiet. They don't hit me, but they're like emotionally, and some of the things they call me and say to me, yeah, it really, really bothers me. But I'll just be quiet. You know, at the end of the day, I'll just try to be as civil as possible. That's ma'rufa. Allah at least tells us and requires us to have that as bare minimum. Remember, birrul walidain, to respect your parents, does not mean you listen to every single thing they ask from you. That's not birrul walidain. The Quran does not tell us, obey everything your parents ask of you. Yeah, and then a specific example, right? In Surah Luqman. And if they argue with you to try to do something or be a certain way that's displeasing to Allah, فَلَا تُطِعْهُمْ, and don't listen to them. That also teaches us that parents are not perfect. They will get it wrong at times. And it's okay for a child to be respectful and say, you know what, Mom, no, I think that's wrong. Dad, no. You know, let's go back and I'll help you with that. That's wrong. That's part of the sunnah too. No, not even prophets were given that gift of obey them without exception, right? They had certain ways of things they would eat, how they would dress, certain lifestyle choices. Those were like, okay, if you wanted to, you could. If you wanted to wear white like the Prophet, you could. If you wanted to wear the turban, you could. But if you didn't, was that mean that you were no longer a companion, or you were disobedient against the sunnah and against the Prophet's teachings? No. So you understand, like, those are just some of what you know, obviously the subject of parents is massive. One last point I will share with you. is what I refer to as modern day parallels. So, modern day parallels.
So, what question?
Yeah.
If I may.
Uh-huh.
The Quran always tells us وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا.
Yeah.
And then we are talking about, would that be considered ihsan if you think that they have a certain thing and sometimes they can be wrong about certain things, then just like صاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا and leaving it at that, would that be considered ihsan?
So, صاحبهما في الدنيا معروفة is the bare minimum. But no, that is not ihsan. وبالوالدين إحسانا is ihsan. What is وبالوالدين? بر الوالدين is that when you have parents that, okay, this is not about disagreeing anymore. This is about you being a good child. You agree, you have great parents. And so whenever they ask you for something, you don't just want to listen and do it. So if they ask you, I want you to help me vacuum and clean up the house. You're not just going to take a little broom, lift up the carpet, shove it underneath there. You know, the walls are, you don't even just spray like some Windex, wipe a spot here and there. Ihsana is that you obey, but you do it in the best and most pleasant way that makes them feel like there's nothing to complain about. So when they say, can you clean my house? I say, yeah, sure, no problem. Not only are you vacuuming and mopping and wiping, you wipe the windows, then you say, you know what, I finished a bit early, mom, dad's not home yet, let me go and just start up dinner. So then you start up dinner. When you're done, and you start doing, that's ihsana. And Allah says that the way to start building birrul walidain with your parents is you don't start by doing the bare minimum. What do you start with? This is the only ibadah that we have in Islam that tells you to start off, you start with ihsan. It's the only one. Everything else you build to get to ihsan, and ihsan is the peak, it's the climax. Only respecting and obeying and loving parents starts with the best. Everything else is secondary. You start there. So it's not just like, if your mom is like, where are you? Busy, send. No. Hey, assalamu alaikum, mom. I'm still here at the masjid, or I'm still doing this. Okay, I'll call you after. ... heart emoji, or something, you know? See those little subtleties? You know, when you're a parent, subhanAllah, man, and you see that, it doesn't matter what you're talking about with your child. Did you wear that, jacket I bought you? Yes, I love it. Heart, 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 heart. You know what parents see in that message? They don't see I love it. You know what they see? What do they see? Heart, 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 heart. And they don't see the emoji heart. You know which heart they see? They see their kid's heart. Only those of you that are parents know what I'm talking. If you're not a parent and you have no kids, may Allah help you. Inshallah, one day you will have children. When you have kids, you know exactly what I'm referencing to. Like any little thing that they do to show kindness to you, it's not just an act of kindness for a parent. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to make them their favorite dinner when they get home because I got 3 of these hearts sent to me. That's what a parent does. Yeah, that's what happens with a parent. This last one here, like the surrogate mom, right? Carries a child, gives birth to this child. Does the child belong to her? No. So then, how some of the ulama also add in terms of what this might mean is that scenario. When that child is born, whomsoever that child becomes, one day can also become her boss, i.e. her master. So let's just say down the road, that mother becomes old and frail, that surrogate mom, and she goes into a senior's home. Guess who's in charge of that senior's home? The same person that she once carried. And that she thinks, maybe he might treat me like a real mom. But instead, he treats her and the others like what? I am the boss, i.e. the master, and you are all my slaves. So that image, that scenario is also, it's possible. And to be quite honest with you, the ulama do not pick one of these and say this is what this is in reference to. All of these have some truth to it. And there's more, by the way, but there's just a few to make the point. So that is possibly what this statement is in reference to. Then it continues, and that you will find the barefooted, naked, poor shepherds competing one another in the construction of higher buildings. So this is the second sign mentioned in the same hadith, okay? What is this all about? So this really brings us to a whole nother fitna in this day and age. You know, in the 20th century, some of our scholars say, so you can write this down, that one meaning behind this statement is in reference to the Bedouins of the Middle East. So before they had struck rich with oil and other natural resources, the Bedouins had nothing. As a matter of fact, maybe some of you, when you were kids, you probably heard of Saudi Arabia or you heard of Dubai, but the only things you heard about was Mecca and Medina. That's it. Riyadh, Jeddah, you know, these are cities now that are booming, right? Trillions of dollars have literally built and created the infrastructure to become some of the richest, most luxurious and lavish, you know, cities on the planet. When you think of like a city like Dubai, you know, just 50 years ago, Dubai was all desert. Just imagine all of downtown Dubai that you see it with Burj Khalifa and all of this stuff. None of it was just sand with a little dirt road in the center. As a matter of fact, you can even Google it, that an image of Dubai 50, 60 years ago, and see what it looked like and compare the two. It's remarkable. So here's the point. Eventually, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the Bedouins at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. When they hear that somebody who is poor, barefooted, literally barefooted. When we see barefoot, literally they never owned a shoe. They lived and died barefooted. Nakedness here does not mean no clothes. It means that just enough to cover the awrah and that's it. No, you know, long sleeve and a short sleeve, no. Just enough to cover the awrah. And as a matter of fact, there are endless stories of Bedouins when they die. There isn't enough, because they're so poor, there isn't enough to even bury them and to shroud them. You would literally just put them into the dirt the way they are. So when they hear a statement like this, so imagine yourself as a Bedouin. There's no building, nothing, just some dead trees and a bunch of sand all around you. And a man comes to you and says, yeah, there'll become a time that your family, later down the line, will become so rich, so wealthy, that they will start to compete with one another in the construction of buildings. Do we see that today? Oh yeah. Don't kid yourself. Right? When you see these massive skyscrapers, especially in the Middle East, right? You know, now they have the Jeddah Tower coming up, and there will be another one after that as well. Then when you see this, and all of the families and people that are behind the construction of these massive monuments and buildings and things like that, all of these families, all of their ancestors go back to where? To a Bedouin. As a matter of fact, some of them who are behind these construction, these plans, are Bedouins themselves. Like they were once upon a time when they were kids, living in the mountains in a desert under like a little hut somewhere. And now they have access to all of this, which is, you know, it leads us to a whole big, like massive problem when you look at politics and you look at, you know, what the Arab world has done, you know, to really serve and protect the Muslim world, particularly not just in Palestine, but all throughout the Muslim world, in Gaza, in Yemen, in Sudan, and so on. And it really boils down to just look at what the whole point of this part of the hadith is, to just show us like this is where their priorities went to. Like they took trillions of dollars and started just, oh yeah, your building is only 1 kilometer high? Okay, wait till you see what I have. And there's actually a plan right now to build a skyscraper that is over 2 kilometers high, 2 miles high. So what is that, like just around 4 kilometers plus high? Yeah.
Is that a Jedi one?
No, it's another one that will come after that. And it will be in the Middle East region as well. So there's plans that are being discussed for that as well. You know, there was a famous individual, you all know his name, he's mentioned throughout the Quran, who had the same mentality. What's his name? Fir'aun. What did he do? Fir'aun once said that I'm going to build a tower or some kind of structure that will allow me to reach the sky where death won't find me. Okay? And that's why the ayah in Surah An-Nisa now got revealed, right? أينما تكون يدرككم الموت ولو كنتم في بروج مشيدة. Anywhere you are, death will find you, even if you are in tall towers high in the sky. It's directly pointing to an attitude that Fir'aun started, and unfortunately continues till this day, right? I always wonder, like, what is the mindset of the people who sit for ages and hours planning this? What are they thinking? Are they just thinking they can't have it the highest? We need to build it high. Like, we have to have that trophy. We have to have that honor. Or is there something else that they're thinking about that could possibly connect us to something like this? Like, is it pride? Is it ego? Is it just the fact that we can, so we should? What is it? Allahu A'lam. But my point here is, you as a Bedouin now hearing this statement, you're just like, wow, that's unbelievable. We'd never think of that, but here we are. Okay? Then he departed. Jibreel alayhi salam left. Prophet alayhi salam kept silent for a while, and then he said to me, "O Umar," why did he keep silent? Why did the Prophet ﷺ stay silent here? You know, sometimes when you learn something, you have to pause. Why? To allow it to resonate and process. Instead of when you're an Islamic teacher, you get this from time to time. No, that's wrong. Just relax. Go home and think about this statement. That is part of seeking ilm as well, is that this hastiness, and the Prophet ﷺ said that hastiness in general is from shaitan, right? خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ مِنْ عَجَلٍ in the Quran, that Allah tells us that this is how He created mankind, is they don't want to wait for anything. So if something is uncertain and we're not sure about it, we don't want to wait. It's generally speaking, humans don't want to just wait and like, okay, let me go back and really think about what this person said, what I learned today. So this is possibly one reason why, I mean, for all you know, the Prophet ﷺ could have even just kept silent because like, oh God, what in the world just happened? Like, what is all this? But more than likely that isn't the case. He ﷺ knows that this is Jibreel. Okay, he knows. So the most common explanation, I won't say the correct because really and truly, all of them make sense and it's not a big deal, but perhaps he was remaining silent to allow all those who were listening in to this conversation between him and Jibreel, for all of them to just take a moment and then turn to the main guy, Umar radiallahu anhu. Do you know who this person was? Do you know who the questioner is? And Umar replies, Allah and his messenger know better. The Prophet ﷺ said, he was Jibreel. He came to you to teach you your deen. This is our deen. Okay? Everything that you've seen in this hadith. So, insha'Allah ta'ala, as you move forward in life and you ever wish to have a conversation or hold a class or a lecture or a talk and introduce Islam, particularly to a non-Muslim crowd, but for even Muslims as well, Hadith of Jibreel, the mother of the Sunnah, is certainly without a doubt a great and complete and a comprehensive start to that conversation. We will now move on to Hadith number 3. And this Hadith, a quick overview, explains the 3 core dimensions of Islam. Now, this Hadith, we're not going to spend too much time on it because a lot of what is, excuse me here, no, not this one, hold on. This is the one, yeah. So Hadith number 3, here we are. Islam is built upon 5 pillars. Can we have one of the brothers read it to me in English, please? Yeah, go ahead, if you don't mind, yeah.
Islam has been built on 5 pillars, testifying that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Performing the prayers, paying the zakah, making the pilgrimage to the house, and fasting in Ramadan.
Okay. So this is the hadith itself. عن أبي عبد الرحمن عبد ابن عبد عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه. Okay, after me students, so let's start from here. So in your books, look for this word here, okay? سمعت. Everybody see that? Okay, so after me. سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. If you have to work on your sallallahu alayhi wasallam, take advantage of these sessions, okay? So if your sallallahu alayhi wasallam sounds like sallam, sallallahu, and you're not pronouncing certain things properly, don't make it repetitive. Just perfect it with yourself here now as we're doing it, okay? And then the hadith begins. يقول بني الإسلام على 5 شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا رسول الله محمدا رسول الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة وحج البيت وصوم رمضان. And that is the narration, رواه البخاري ومسلم. Okay, so it is of course from Bukhari and Muslim. Okay, so as you see there, that Islam has built on these 5 pillars, which we've already discussed. And this is the only addition that I want to give you, okay? So you don't have to write the explanation. I mean, if you wish, it's fine. Just the numbers alone is the most important thing that I want you to keep in mind. Now, scholars all agree the Shahada has the following conditions. Some say 7, some say more, some say less, depending on how you categorize each of them. It's not really a big deal. You do not have to memorize these in order to have a valid Shahada, but you do need to be aware of them. And that's what we're going to do. The first condition, okay, and the most common is 7, so we're going to stick to the 7 conditions of a valid Shahada that is acceptable by Allah. Is number 1, you actually have to understand and know what it is that you're saying. If somebody wants to become Muslim and said, hey, how do I do that Muslim thing? And you're like, really? You want to become Muslim? Yeah, I want to be Muslim. I heard you just have to like sing something. You're like, no, just say this. And then just repeat it, Ashhadu Allah. Is their Shahada acceptable? Is their Shahada accepted? Technically, no. Right? Because you should at least be aware what it is that you're saying and why you're saying it. So this is our identity. This is our label. This is who we are. We are La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So you have knowledge. So when we say that a person must understand the meaning and the implications of what they're saying, they should have a good idea. The first part of the Shahada and the last part of the Shahada. La ilaha, and then illallah, and of course Muhammadur Rasulullah is straightforward. So this is number 1. Number 2, yaqeen. not only do you say it, 100% your heart and your life represents it. You are certain without a doubt. So if somebody wants to debate you about your Islam, challenge your core, your creed or your beliefs, they can, in terms of the knowledge. Perhaps you want to debate certain principles about it, but you're not going to change my heart. I will live and I will die, inshallah, as this. That's the certainty. So a person must be free from any doubt or uncertainty. You should never be like, really, is Muhammad is the last prophet? You sure? I don't know, man. I think somebody else may have came after him. That we forgot. No, you can't do that. You will invalid your shahada. It will become invalid. So it is firm, unwavering conviction of the heart. The Quran contrasts true believers. Okay, we have no doubt with hypocrites. Okay. Number 3 is al-qabul, acceptance. So not only do you believe in this statement, but you wholeheartedly accept the shahada and everything that it implies. Your heart accepts it, your tongue accepts it, and it's manifested through your life. Anything that goes against your shahada. So if somebody came up with a different form of the same shahada, but they added a little sentence here and there, no. You will nullify the entire shahada as a result. I.e., just keep in mind, students, when we say nullify the shahada, what are we saying about that individual? They are no longer Muslim, okay? They leave the fold of Islam. So if they want to repent and come back to Islam, what must they do? Renew their shahada all over. Number 4, al-inqiyad, or submission. Okay, so this is what we've been chatting about for pretty much all the sessions. It's not just about talking the talk, but you have to walk the walk. How does one live according to the Islamic teachings? I wrote there how, but all of you have answers to this. So how does somebody apply the teachings of their belief and put all of that in action? You all know. So by following the instructions of halal and haram, what you are permitted to and what you must abstain from. Okay, things that you say, things that you talk about, things that you hear, things that you're involved in, how you make your money, how you spend it, who gets what. Nothing that we do in life, we are permitted to do freely and openly without any guideline. There isn't a single thing in a human being's life, especially, of course, for us as Muslims, where we can sort of be free and just do as we please. Nothing, zero. And I'm okay with that. Are you guys okay with that as well? Because I ask you this question because sometimes critics of Islam will be like, you Muslims, you guys are like puppets, man. Everything your religion tells you to do, every single thing, how to walk, how to dress, you can't do what you should eat. You can't do anything by yourself. You guys are like puppets. You know what is your response to that, by the way?
That you chose this, so it's not, no one forced it on you. You chose to obey.
Okay. It's my choice, okay. Uh-huh.
Men are created weak, so we need rules.
Okay, you're right. But I fear the answer because you might open up a can of words, but that technically is okay. But you don't want to steer the conversation there. What you want to do is keep it as generic as possible, okay? So you are not going to be talking about any particular gender. You're just going to talk about Muslims in general. We are all following these guidelines. And you guys are like puppets. What? Let me hear one last answer. Yeah.
So I'm gonna follow a companion
Mm-hmm.
of the Prophet that I've heard say when he was told about this by somebody from Bani Israel, possibly a Jew. And he said, yeah, he even taught us how to wipe our behind,
Yeah.
exactly how we should do it properly.
This is the famous narration of Salman al-Farisi, radiallahu anhu. So a Jew came to him and said, your prophet teaches you how to go to the bathroom? Salman al-Farisi didn't say, well, you know what, it's actually pretty good for you, because if you squat a certain way, you're able to process and blah, 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 you digest. He doesn't get into any of that. He just says, na'am. Yes, he does teach us how to do that. Done. My point is this. Don't be afraid, okay? To stay away of constantly finding a logical explanation to everything that is being critiqued about Islam, because we do not have all the answers about our religion. There are aspects of this religion that we are told to believe because they come from the unseen. Remember that whole ilm al-ghaib conversation we had? And we said in the beginning of the Quran, what is it, the third ayah, Alif Lam Mim Dhalika al-Kitabu la rayba fihi hudan lil-muttaqin. The fourth ayah, Alladhina yu'minuna bil-ghaib. 4 ayat, the fourth one, so 3 ayat, the fourth sentence, Allah tells you in this religion, the believers have to believe الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ. So they will have to establish prayer, but they will also have to believe in things that they will never see, know, or understand. They have to believe, though, that it's there. So sometimes when you're in these conversations, especially with like non-Muslims or critics, it's okay to be satisfied and walk away, be like, I believe in it. Yeah, there is a paradise. Yeah, there is the day of judgment. Yeah, we will come back out of our, graves. And Allah will ask us, will talk to us. And then I'll be back with my family and everybody else in paradise forever. Yeah, I do believe that there was a man. He got on a horse. It had wings. And he went up to the sky. And he met all these prophets and he met Allah and spoke to him. Sometimes when these things are brought up to some Muslims, they're like, you believe in that, artificial, Netflix type movie sort of thing. You actually believe that that's part of your religion? Yeah, I believe it. Done. If you're comfortable in taking those things further, fine. It's up to you. Me, I don't even waste my time with it. Unless somebody has a genuine interest and wants to have a conversation with you, I'll do that all day. But if you're just going to drag me off the street, which has happened many times, I would literally be like, listen, here's my number, or here's where my office is. You want to come and talk to me really about these ayat? By all means. You're going to drop me on the street and be like, yeah, why was she 9 years old? I'm not going to have this conversation with you then. Yeah. Yeah, same thing. Because all you have to do is be like, look at me. I don't feel restricted. You see, one of the things that is really effective is that when you make Islam as personal as you can in these conversations. So just talk about how Islam, what it does for you. You can't eat pork. Sometimes some of my non-Muslim friends, I have quite a few of them. They're like, man, you don't eat pork. You have no idea where you're missing out. These cuts, and they'll describe to me certain parts of the bagel. Like, this is where it is. This is the prime cuts right here. You're missing out, bro. And I would just say to them, no, I'm really, really content with that. I'm happy with it, and I don't need to try that to find any satisfaction. And then you make it very personal to you. Don't be like, well, there's 70 plus diseases that come from that pork. Because there's a lot of diseases that can come from beef and chicken and other meats as well, right? If you just leave it there. What happens to beef, on a hot day? If you just leave it out in the sun, what happens to it? You have these little tiny friends that start, squiggling around, and I don't know, it's like it's miraculous. They just burst, and there they are, millions of them crawling around. Yummy. So I just kind of leave that to you. It's kind of a personal decision. For me personally, a time and place for everything, right? So if you really want to understand my religion, the whys, no problem. We can have a deep conversation about that. But pulling me aside and just poking at this religion, it's not going to work. Right? Because I don't feel, I'm not restricted. Women are not being treated a particular way, or they're not deprived of their rights, etc. As a matter of fact, just talk to my wife. She'll tell you what Islam does for her. Things like that. And you'll be surprised at how quickly a conversation comes to an end when you do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
So we are not obliged as Muslims to stop and give that information to a random asker?
I feel like you're able to sense when someone's being
Yeah.
sincere.
You know, I was going to say to you, just use your wisdom. Yeah. It's not a yes or no answer. Just be wise. Choose your conversations selectively and carefully, because also be mindful that it also can be potentially dangerous. Okay? So you are, like, as a principle, you are not required to entertain every request that comes to your way when it comes to the deen, right then and there on the spot. Your safety matters, your environment matters, the level of knowledge you have matters, what access do you have in terms of, if you don't know, where do you send this person? You can't just be like, okay, just look for a building that has a dome, walk in there and see. You can't do that. So you have to have some background. So if you're there and you're comfortable to do that, yeah. But safety is a critical and important component when you're giving da'wah. Don't take that for granted. Let me give you these last two. Truthfulness is fine. We done. Okay, and here's the last two. I'll just pause for the adhan. So last and final one I will just touch on briefly, the love of the shahada, it lies in your love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your love for the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay? So when we say the love is a condition of the shahada, not like loving the sentence or the phrase itself, but what it refers to and what it represents. Love for Allah and His Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. That you love him above and beyond anything else. That is, of course, integral for a valid shahada. So like I said, you don't have to memorize these, but you should just at least be aware of them. Yeah, there's nothing here that I really want to highlight. And that leads us to hadith number 4. And inshallah, we will continue with hadith 4 and we will get to probably around hadith 7 or 8, inshallah, as of next week. Okay? So the ball is rolling, students. So inshallah, you guys are doing great so far with respect to the attendance. So just keep that coming, inshallah. As long as you are present, you are fine, inshallah ta'ala. So Allah keep us safe, and inshallah we resume next week, and also for our students online. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.